WLPN LP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. You're listening to noseyAF. I'm Stephanie Graham, and happy Black History Month. Happy Valentine's Day. You know, Valentine's Day tends to make love feel very loud. You know, everybody's got their teddy bears out, their chocolates. We're passing Valentine's. It's just like, sometimes it can feel like it's like a who's in, who's out kind of a thing. But I like Valentine's Day. I don't know. Today's conversation, though, it lives somewhere softer, like in the territory of care. Care is ritual, care is teaching, care is creativity, care as the ways we show up for one another every day, not just Valentine's Day. So today I'm talking to Joe Schupbach, who is a mission-driven educator and organizational leader, a theater maker with more than 2 decades of experience across public education, nonprofits, and community-centered theater. His work is grounded in trauma-informed practice, experiential learning, and deeply relational approaches to teaching and art making. I think you're going to love Joe, and, let's start. So, Joe, how do you what kind of relationship do you have to Valentine's Day? It seems like it's a very, um, people have a hard time or they love it. Where are you at with it?
I'm pro Valentine's Day in general.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced it more as a single person than as a partnered person, right? Maybe most of us have.
Yeah.
Um, but I like the fanfare of it. I like a little note. I like
Yep.
the idea of like a secret drop off. I like the color scheme. I like an excuse to eat winter chocolate.
Period.
Um, but uh I don't like when things are like overly romantic on Valentine's Day because I think there's an opportunity for it to be a celebration of like friendship, the love of friendship, pink
Yeah.
and purple.
Yeah. When you were in the classroom, did you do Valentine's Day with your students?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, in the sense that when I taught high school theater, we did do like monologues, like I wish monologues, romantic monologues, like thinking about them as like love poems.
Okay.
I remember teaching that in theater class, and then in the English class I was teaching during that same time, we did look at like poetry form that week. So it was like a cute way to do it. Um, but when I taught elementary, I feel like other classes were taking care of the Valentine's Day celebration.
Oh, okay, okay. So you didn't have to do the mailboxes and stuff.
No, but I remember vividly doing it as a student. Like, I remember
Yeah.
second grade, like, coming in with all my Valentines written out for every person in the class.
Yes.
And in
And
second grade, specifically, we had done brought in the shoebox and cut, like, a mail slot in it and, like, decorated it with
yes.
construction paper. That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. When I had to do Valentine's, there was, we would get the sheets that were perforated, and I would, pull them apart and put them in each envelope.
Yeah.
And there was a girl who wasn't nice to my friend. And when I had ripped her Valentine card, it sort of wasn't a clean rip.
Mm.
And usually I would have gotten a new Valentine card, but I didn't. And that's not nice looking back, but you know what? Be kind to others, and then they'll be kind to you. And that's what
Yeah,
Valentine's Day is about, loving one another.
that's
So,
right.
so you work really a lot in creative leadership, would you say?
Mhm.
Yeah. How'd you get into that?
By accident. So right when I got out of college, I started work as like a professional teaching artist
Mm-hmm.
for Playmakers Lab, for Looking Glass, primarily, and then a couple other organizations here and there. And this is well before I started directing plays. I was just a teacher, and then I started like being a lead teacher, so being, like, on a team with teaching artists and then leading them in that space. Sometimes, with Looking Glass, I was, like, a lead teacher with just when there were 2 of us, sometimes one of the teaching artists was more in charge. And I
Okay.
started doing that, at Park School at Evanston, which is a all special ed school that we provided, weekly theater classes to, and that's really where that, I think, leadership started. Um and then I fell into more like formal leadership roles, where I was like running our after school program. I ended up accidentally becoming a board member at Playmakers.
Oopsie.
Um, and then I started dabbling in direction, and that's when for better or for worse, I started being in charge of the room, and that
Uh,
led to my more like formal sort of management leadership roles in like arts management, and then in education.
do you like do you like being the leader? Like I think one thing that I always really admire about you is that you will take charge on things, even if it's like your own personal projects. Like you always are just like initiating things. Um and I think where I guess sometimes I think like, if folks are the leaders, do they ever think, "Man, how come I always have to start something up?" Do you ever feel
Yeah,
like that?
well, 100%. So, I mean, I think part of that impulse for me comes from being the oldest sibling. And
Okay.
if you know this about me, like I have uh, a biological sister, and then my parents were foster parents for a long time. And so
Okay.
I was like a super older sibling to many. And I'm 7 years older than my sister, and often 7 years or more older than the foster kids that lived with us, my foster siblings. And so I was like always in charge in good and bad ways. I mean, like hard ways, like being sort of parentalized, but in good ways of like, here's what we're doing today on summer break while mom's at work. And so some of that like is sort of natural or came from birth order. And then some of that comes from what you're just talking about if you want something to happen, like one of the surefire ways to make it happen is to do it, or to
Mhm.
like start that conversation or put a project on the calendar and like wrangle people to be involved. Um, so in some ways it comes naturally, in some ways it's a learned behavior, and in some ways it's like, well, if I want to do this, I think I have to do it. Um, and then to your question about like, do I like it? I think it's a mixed bag, right? It's lonely at the top. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah, really.
Um, but I do like the parts that I especially like about being a boss or a leader or the director in the theater space or a teacher is I get to have the responsibility and honor to like take care of people in the room. Um, I think that's actually like how I got into directing is I was like, I want to take care of this room. I want to create the conditions in this room that I wish were true in rehearsal rooms or
Mm.
replicate the conditions that I found to be um, positive, playful, um, and good conditions of like creativity and good conditions of like psychological safety. So I like being the one who like sets some of that because it honestly puts me at ease and it makes me feel like good about the way that I'm taking care of people in the room.
Yeah. And then, like, when you're leading something, like, what do you pay the closest attention to?
I think I probably have different answers for different eras in my life.
Uh-huh.
I think in a fun, whimsical way, I really like to create spaces that uh honor creativity, but also autonomy. I like that people can contribute to things, and not just sort of produce the thing or the project or the piece of art that I'm trying to produce, but really be like co-authors in that. Um, I really like I'm a fan of the surrealists, and I'm a fan of like not always knowing what something's going to look like and putting things next to each other and seeing what evolves. So much of my work has been in like um, group creation and devising, and so I'm really
Mm,
interested in what like the brains and hearts in the room
yeah.
come up with. But I also spent some time thinking about trauma informed practice as this is like both like a work responsibility and also something I'm proud to participate in, and to think about like what does everybody need to feel successful and safe in the space. Thinking about like predictability, like folks knowing and being able to visualize what they're coming into before they do it. Having flexibility in the room from everything from like taking breaks to like pausing and like uh reevaluating like whether or not something's working for folks or if both in art and in human services and public
Mhm.
education stuff is personal. And I try to create spaces where like people can dip out or take a break or like rethink what version of themselves they're bringing to the room, and what version of the room feels like safe and digestible at any given time. And I believe that like a rising tide raises all ships. Like
Yeah.
something that makes things softer, safer, and more achievable for an individual probably serves the larger group. Um, so I think about like all those things, like both the creative play part of what I can set up and the like psychological safety part of what I can set up.
I really like that, and it feels like it you, like, make yourself really open, but I also think, like, what if somebody wants to bring something to the room that you don't like? Or if you're, like, directing and they're like, "I wanna do this," and you try to keep open, and you're like, "Actually, I don't want you to do that." But you're
Well, that
trying to
happens all
still
the
stay
time.
open.
Yeah, I mean, that took all the time, right? I mean, that can be anything as small as like an actor choice, like or a design choice that like I might want to see like their idea up on its legs, but then make an adjustment because it might not fit the like mood or tone or purpose of the piece. But then also that can manifest as like something feels offensive or problematic or in poor taste, and the individual probably didn't intend it to be, but I've had to give notes before, like, "I know what you're trying to do, and this is how it's reading." And I think that's an interesting thing from the arts that probably can transcend the arts, which is they assume best intent, but attend to impact. Like, yeah, I know you're not trying to do something wild,
Yeah.
but this is how it's reading, and this is how, like, an audience or a participant would process it, or at least that's my experience and belief, like, taking in this thing, and that can, like I said, transcend art. Like, in my current job, we create a lot of, professional development workshops for adults. We
Mhm.
try to, like, put on different hats and stand in different people's shoes. Like, after we create something, we're like, "Okay, what would this day feel like for an introvert? What would this day feel like for an educator who's experienced loss recently?" Or, um just really thinking about, like, the diversity of human experience and, like,
Mm.
diversity of intelligence and everything in between, because you can't make a day just for extroverts, you can't make a day just for, people who love physical action, like, you have to make a day that's really, like, caring and, diversified for
Yeah.
adult learners or for any learner, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think about, like, I don't know, just how, like, you can maintain your own vision while letting other people be collaborative in that vision. I think, like in film, we have like our stories all the time, and each like department has to bring sometimes their own interpretation of like what a character might have to the story. Um, and that's like still collaborative, but then I guess the director can say like, "Oh, actually, no, actually, yeah," and then we just have to go back and reshift. But I don't know, it just makes me think like when you want to be open, how can you like still make sure that everything's still contained while everybody's still respected? I think that's sorta hard. I
It's
can't even
sort of
talk about it, it's sorta hard.
it's totally hard, and, like, I think it manifests in so many different kinds of rooms and ecosystems and everything in between, like, I think that happens in the arts all the time. I literally, we have, like, jobs in the arts that, like,
Mhm.
someone is the decider, and, even, like, I'm a boss. I supervise a team of 4 instructional coaches, and I wanna keep things as, like, um I wanna have as much dialogue and, like, exploration at the center as possible, and in all those spaces, it's still, like, there's a gift of responsibility and there's a curse of responsibility because ultimately your job is still to say, I heard the feedback or I saw the choice and here's why we're doing X, Y, or Z. And so I think what makes that successful, at least on a good day, is like transparency around it. Like,
Yeah.
this is why I don't think it's working. And the good thing about that is that can actually create dialogue, like further creative dialogue. Like, oh, now that I know what you're seeing, I can actually make a different choice that's informed. Not just sort of like me making a group of actors perform the way that I would do it, because I'm not really interested in my performance of it. Otherwise, I'd be an actor. Um, but like the more like conversation that goes back and forth, the more it actually like informs the creativity of the room. And also, I think it's like a gift for anyone to be like, I heard the feedback and here's why I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, that's tricky, right? And I think taking like sort of like problematic stuff out of the equation, right? But like more creative choices
Sure, of course, of course.
and experimentation at work, like it's appropriate to be like, I've heard that feedback, so I'm going to try it anyway. And then I'm like going to come back to you and see, did it work differently this time? Or like, for like my staff that I supervise, like they, um, they work on their own with their own caseloads of schools. And so sometimes they actually do know better, right? Because they know these adults really well. That's like part of their job is getting to know a school really well. And so like my advice is usually like, well, here's how I would do it, but I'm not at that school every week.
Hey, here's a question. Is there like instructional coaches? What if you're like homeschooled? Should there
Um,
be? I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
It
I
made me
don't
think
know
about homeschool.
if, yeah, I was gonna say if I'm being honest, I don't know how homeschool works. But what is funny is that I didn't know like instructional coaches existed until I started teaching high school. Um, I guess I maybe knew well, I knew they existed when I was little in the sense that I knew that sometimes when I had a teacher teaching, there was a mystery person in the back of the room.
Yeah, yeah,
And you get that little speech from the teacher that's like, "Hey, we're gonna have a visitor today." But I certainly didn't like know that it was like a job that I could pursue. I kind of fell into it. Um, and yeah, it's interesting to think about like when you're little, when you're a young learner, a student, you don't really understand all the jobs in education. You don't understand all the
yeah.
people that stop by your classroom and why they're there and what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So, like, just in short for the listener, can you just briefly explain what an instructional coach is?
Yeah, so an instructional coach, the way I explain it to like relatives or people outside the industry is like I teach teachers.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I was thinking. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And more specifically, it's there's a lot of different kinds of instructional coaches, right? So schools have instructional coaches who are like helping teachers grow specifically to meet school goals, to meet like professional metrics of success. Like when I was a high school teacher, I had an instructional coach who was helping me evolve my practice to better align with like the goals and practices of the school in general.
Okay.
My job is unique because I'm an instructional coach that works with a nonprofit that's like a outside organization, Embark, that's the name of it.
Uh
And
huh.
we coach around relationship-centered experiential learning. So we're helping teachers um, put relationship building at the center of their coursework,
Mm-hmm.
and we're helping them lead experiential learning in and out of the building. So the things we're coaching on is not it's not an evaluation, it's not about job performance. We're not secret spies for the
Yeah.
administrators. We're much more we're walking alongside them and we're offering kind of like we were just talking about like me as a director, like walking alongside them knowing we're not doing the work. They're doing the work. I
Mm-hmm.
often compared to midwifery,
Okay.
the midwife, right?
Yeah.
Where the midwife is offering coaching and care and strategy, but the person giving birth is doing the hard work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very similar, like metaphorically in that way. The teacher is still the one who is there every day with their students, doing everything they're required to do by the state and the city and their school. And we're kind of the fairy godmother with some bright ideas coming in. And offering like coaching around behaviors and ways of being, meaning like how is the teacher showing up in the room?
Yeah.
How are they helping students build relationships with each other? How are they building relationships with their own students, like the teacher building relationships? And how are they engaging? This is our work in particular in experiential learning, specifically having kids make an action and then reflect on that action and then repeat that cycle.
Okay. I like that. And then would you have to be an educator first in order to start becoming a teacher who teaches teachers? Or can you just come out the gate saying, I'm going to be a teacher who teaches teachers?
I think 99.9% of instructional coaches, no matter like how their job has manifested, have probably been classroom educators
Okay.
um, in some way.
Mhm.
Um, the Probably the exception to that is sometimes folks who pursue educational leadership, like a principal or vice principal,
Mhm.
they may come from a different path within education. Like a lot of school counselors pursue school leadership roles. They
Okay.
may not have been like a classroom teacher, but they probably worked in a school for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of related to your question, like my path to all of this is really strange. Like
Mhm.
I did an major in education. I wasn't a classroom teacher right away. I was we say professional teaching artist. I don't know what an unprofessional teaching artist is, but that was my primary role for years. I was, going into schools and teaching theater, writing, storytelling, even visual arts for short
Oh.
periods, right? Like 6 weeks, 9 weeks, maybe once a week for the whole year, but still like I was still like the funny weird guy that stopped by. My first classroom teaching gig was at St. Clement School, which is a Catholic school in Lincoln Park, and I was like their in-house drama teacher, and that was the first time I was there like with my own classroom. Um, and then
Were you
later I would teach
scared?
high school. Um, I was scared I would run out of my bag of tricks. 'Cause I
Okay.
was so used to teaching 6 to 9 weeks, right? Like, I was so used to I basically had, like, 10 to 15 tried and true lessons, that would change, um, but, when I first got that classroom, I was teaching 3rd grade through 8th grade drama, and I was like, "Oh, I need enough lessons for the whole year." Which I had, like, there's a little imposter syndrome there, like, I had taught so many different kinds of things with Looking Glass and with Playmakers and, like, everything from, like, mime to improv to storytelling to adaptation. So I actually did have a pretty big bag of tricks, but I was like, "Oh, there's a lot of school." Uh,
Yeah.
and then that was sort of built even more upon when I taught high school for 2 years, where I was teaching every day. Because when I was at the Catholic school, I was there 2 days a week,
Mhm.
and when I taught high school, it was every day and same kids every day. So I couldn't run out of lessons.
Yeah, and I feel like if I was the teacher, I always would get scared of having to be like, "Hey guys, listen up. Hey, hey, listen up." Like the discipline classroom management. Yeah, that seems really, really intimidating.
It is. Same tricks don't work with the same age groups. The same tricks don't work with the same, like, with all of your 10th graders. Like, everyone the kids and the classes are really different. The same tricks don't work in first period versus the period after lunch, which
Yeah.
teachers listening, they just nodded their head because your class right after a student goes to lunch is the wildest class you're going to teach all day.
The whole teaching artist thing is such like you're right. Like there's like what defines a teaching artist? Like if I teach a workshop at the museum and it's just for a day, am I a teaching artist that I just get to call myself a teaching artist for that one day, but not after? Or like you had the classroom and you had 6, 9 weeks. So you had like this career of teaching artist. Yeah, it's just like a weird, like it comes in and out. And then like I know like artists have like a hard time sometimes like defining themselves as a teaching artist. Like they just say, don't call me a teaching like it's such a bizarre, the
It is
idea of it
bizarre.
is
And it's a job. Well, another, just like instructional coach, it was a job I didn't know it existed. But then when I look
Uh-huh.
back, I was like, well, wait, no. Like that fun lady did come to my 3rd grade class and we did creative drama. That's what that was. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand that, I didn't clock that. Um,
Mhm.
but it's an interesting role. It's an noticed role, in a lot of ways. But I think the real like purpose behind that title, which is kind of a funny title, professional teaching artist. I
Yeah.
think the professional actually refers to the artist part. Like the point being, someone who works in the field is now coming in to teach. So their expertise is probably not day to day teaching, it is the art form. And so they're
Yes.
coming in, and I didn't understand this when I was younger either. They're coming in to be a partner with the classroom teacher, right? Particularly if you're like only there 6 weeks, you need that teacher to be in the room helping with that classroom management,
Yep, classroom
pe-
management.
period, and being the expert on their students, right? Like the third grade teacher that sees them every day is going to know those students way better than you're going to get to know them in 6 to 9 weeks. And so there really is a partnership there, especially thinking about like, what is the expertise of these like two collaborating people, like the classroom teacher versus the professional lines. But I do think anyone once, like you just asked in your question, kind of like once you do it, yeah, that's what you are. You know.
Yeah. Outside of the classroom, you do so many other, like, really fun projects. Like, what are some of your favorite personal projects that you've done?
Oh man. Well, it's been really different post COVID than pre COVID.
Mhm.
I used to work too much in general
Mm.
and too much on creative projects in the sense I was like never home. And then I think for a lot of people, like COVID was a real reckoning about work life balance, but it also changed the landscape of live art.
Mm.
There's less live theater being produced in this city than there was before. And that's just like interesting and
Mm.
noticeable. So it's changed a lot. Like during COVID, I know you know this, like I had a podcast, I had 3 seasons, and it was about like food and
Yeah.
memory. And that was because I mean, I was something I was interested in, it was something I was writing about. But I also, for me at that time, like I wanted to create art.
Hey, we have to take a quick break, but we will be right back after this. Real talk. How many opportunities have you bookmarked and never applied to? I know I have, and you know what? It happens. The admin part of the work we're doing is understandably boring and tedious. But when you neglect it, it can cost you real opportunities. That's why I created Artist Admin Hour, because behind every exhibition is a clear budget submitted that makes sense. Admin is the flex. It's the work that makes the work work. But you don't have to do it alone. Every Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. Central, artists show up on Zoom to tackle what we've been avoiding. Residency applications, grant apps, budgets, invoices, whatever's on your list. 2 hours of body doubling with structure, no shame, and real community. $25 to $45 a month gets you in, but if that's not doable, email me, because getting this done is very important. We will make it work. Stop letting admin sabotage your practice. Join us today at artistadminhour.com. WLPN LP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. We are back on noseyAF, and we were speaking with Joe Schupbach.
In its intended form. Like I didn't want personally to like move theater on to the internet. Like for
Mm.
me, I consumed a lot of internet theater during that time, but I didn't want to make it. So I was really interested in like staying creative and producing, not in the capitalistic way, but in the regular ways.
Yeah.
During that time, in things that were like intended to be consumed the way I was producing them. So I was writing like nonfiction. I was making that podcast because I was really excited about like podcasts would be online either way, regardless
Mhm.
of whether or not this like massive, ridiculous, terrible thing was happening.
Yeah.
And then since then, I've done a couple fun projects. I did. a stage reading for an international climate change theater festival. And that's like I think it's like biannual. I can't remember. But it's an international festival where playwrights write short plays that are somehow
Oh,
related to climate change.
okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and so we did like a reading around that. And then I've worked a bunch over the years, but over the last couple of years too, with Pocket Veg Hell, which does Chicago-based historical reenactments.
Okay.
Um, and so I directed a reenactment of, they're all based on anniversaries. So it was a big anniversary for Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, which was the first televised puppet show, like nationally syndicated, televised puppet show. And we put on a like puppet show that was like a tribute to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then last year, a similar kind of event, it was the 100th anniversary of the National Barn Dance, which was a nationally syndicated country radio show, the first of its kind.
Hmm.
And so we recreated like a version of that country radio show uh, to celebrate that anniversary. And that was really cool. So those were both like kind of like historically motivated theatrical events. And then I'm very slowly writing a play. Uh,
Ooh, tell
that's
us
like
about
looking at
it.
like oh yeah, it's very slowly writing it, very slowly writing. But it's I grew up going to Bible camp, uh,
Okay.
kind of like, like Jesus Camp, the documentary, like
Uh,
relatively conservative, very like religious summer camp. Um, and that came with a lot of like um trauma for me and a lot of things that I needed to like explore and break down and better understand over the years. So I'm writing a play that's set in a relatively conservative Bible camp, and that space that I grew up in and the space in the play is wrestling with like queerness and like, is there a place for queerness in religion in this particular Bible camp in this play? And it wrestles with the questions of like the need for absolution. Like,
mm,
what do we need to be forgiven for? And like, are we innately problematic? Are we innately lovable? Um, and I'm bearing the lead here, but like, it's also a play about aliens. So
okay.
it's fun. It's sort of like Friday the 13th meets the faculty, or Angels in America meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's exploring like all of those themes through like a kind of classic alien invasion.
Well, will it be funny? Because I keep laughing as you talk. Okay.
I know. I think my hope is it'll be funny, it'll be scary, it'll be
Yeah.
sad. And it will scratch the itch of like just kind of like classic, like Buffy vibes, classic, Close Encounters of the Third Kinds, like vibes. Like I'm playing a lot or leaning into like genre,
Yeah.
but also like wrestling with some like tougher stuff.
Will it come with a workbook or study guide?
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
What are those things called? Like shadow work? Uh,
Oh, shadow work?
yeah, yeah. I see a lot of workbooks about that, like sort of asking yourself the tough questions.
Yeah, and I remember I think it was Kirk Cameron. He would do, like, Christian films that come with a study guide for you to go through with your family. So and then I met another filmmaker at a film festival recently where all her films she wrote study guides with. And I was like, "Wow." Just, like, comprehension questions, I guess. Why not?
I'm like the exact age of someone who was in high school when the Left Behind series was, like, at the top of its popularity,
Okay.
like, the popular book series about the, end times and the rapture, and I'm not rereading it or anything, but, the themes of rapture are very, like, important in the play I'm
In your
writing.
play, okay.
Like, the events of the Book of Revelation and, like, like the idea of like somebody's getting sucked up and like who is it? Is it like
Mm,
the good people, quote unquote, air quotes, or like the problematic people? Like who's getting sucked where uh,
yeah.
at the end times? So that's interesting. You brought up Kirk Cameron because that instantly reminds me of Left Behind and makes me think about the sort of in particular the '90s obsession with the end times.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited about this play that you are slowly, slowly writing. But you know what? Let's talk about your podcast, Mirepoix. Mirepoix. Did I say it right?
Mirepoix. It's French.
Mirepoix. Mirepoix. What does that word mean?
Oh my gosh, great question. So it's a French word, and it refers to the base of a recipe that is specifically is onion, carrot, and celery. So mirepoix is like when you chop up those vegetables and you like cook them down, and then you build the recipe up from there. Um,
Okay.
and while that's like specifically commonly used in like um, French and Italian cooking and like the diaspora of those flavors, um, which is a fancy way to say like the colonial influence of those flavors.
Mm.
Um, taking like two, three, four vegetables and starting a recipe by like cooking it down is like a global practice. And you see it in like all different places. You see it with like pepper, onion, and garlic. You see it with like just like every like there's infinite iterations of like vegetables that you can start your like flavor base with.
Okay.
And it creates a depth of flavor, and it's related to like often like an embodied practice in a particular culture or country or region where like a lot of recipes will start with the same two, three, four vegetables.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why I named the podcast that. I was looking at sort of like embodied practice, cultural roots, autoethnography, and thinking about like where does our relationship with food come from, and how is that my my sort of theory was that our relationship with food is like hyper enmeshed with our memory, with our family and like lineage and like vector of history behind us. And that like all of like those memories are also like hyper connected to like our senses, particularly like smell and taste, but also like sound, like um and how those like small things like smelling something or hearing something can like bring you back to a
Yeah.
particular time. Um and like is a form of time travel in it.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, so I did 3 seasons of that podcast, and then at that same time was finishing my MFA in creative writing and wrote a series of essays that were about food and memory, and like how can like a any sort of sensory experience, including like a bite of food or like a smell coming from someone else's kitchen, can sort of transport you back to a particular moment, a place or
Mhm.
space or moment in time. And that was like in the context of COVID and isolation, like thinking about how you could cook, your grandma's recipe. And even though she wasn't there because of COVID or not, there was like a relationship there. And there's a preservation of history.
Yeah, that's really interesting as a way to sort of like using food as a way to combat loneliness.
Combat loneliness, like revisit the past,
Yeah.
offer like almost like an offering or talisman to ancestors. Like when I make things that remind me of my mom or my grandma's, and like it reminds me of them, but also it
Mhm.
feels like an offering or a ritual that sort of
Yeah.
honors their memory and their legacy.
Has your relationship to food when you were doing this series, like when there was shelter in place, like has your relationship changed now that we're out of that?
100%. I mean, number one, I think my relationship with food changed in lockdown. Like
Yeah.
suddenly, I mean, obviously we could still get delivery there for most of that time.
Yeah.
Um, but like I was cooking for myself more often because I was home.
Yeah.
And that lended itself to like longer recipes. Like I was making red sauce on Sundays, like for real, like
Oh, wow.
the all day cooking, and I was more like open to longer cooking experiences because I had the time, at least a
Yeah.
bit. Um, and to quote one of our mutual friends, Christina Anthony, she talked about
Yes.
during that time, like setting the table for yourself,
Mhm.
even if you were eating alone or even if you were eating with someone else and at home, like you could still do the small things that made things special during a
Yeah.
strained time, lighting a candle, using cloth napkins, like sitting down at the table.
Yeah, make it jazzy for
Make it
yourself.
jazzy and, like, make it, like acknowledge that it's okay to give yourself a gift in those moments, like, you don't have
Yeah.
company to, like, have a nice little time to
Mm.
make a nice meal, to, put in that, like, effort and that, like, work of love of really honest to goodness cooking. So I think, like, that changed my relationship a ton, and then coming out of COVID is I think is more your question, like, that's interesting, a lot of that, like, retracted for me. Um,
Okay.
and I'm still a cooker. Like, I'm still an untrained home chef,
I love it.
But, how many years has it been?
It's
6
like
years
6
later,
years, 6 years.
I'm making those adult Lunchables again, like during lockdown, I was doing
Yeah.
so much cooking, and my mom was still with us then,
Okay.
and I could call her
Right.
and ask her, like, "Hey, when you make lasagna, what do you do?"
Mhm.
Or if you're making I just made stir fry and the vegetables were soggy, what did I do wrong? And so because of that really specific thing, like me practicing a lot and my mom coaching me via phone,
Yeah.
learned how to do a lot of things that I actually
Mm.
didn't know how to do before COVID. And that's like informed my current cooking practice. Which the sadness of that and the beautiful part of that is my mom's no longer with us.
Mhm.
And now a lot of the home cooking I do feels like a ritual that's like connected to her, and like an embodied practice that innately just reminds me of her. And listen, I think a lot of people associate cooking with their mom or their grandmas, but
Yeah.
my mom was an exceptional cook, and
Yeah.
I feel really lucky to have like inherited or learned even just a little bit of her cooking craft. Um, there's a lot of jokes online about, your seasoning and you do it until the ancestors tell you to stop, or
Yeah.
like that. Not a joke. They're beautiful, like,
Yeah.
connections, that people are sharing, but I literally have that sort of connection with my mom while cooking, where, like, I know I, like, almost feel her saying, like, "Put water in that, otherwise it's gonna, like, cook down too fast."
Oh,
Or
wow.
this doesn't have enough acid in it, like, it's not just like watching cooking shows on Food Network. It's
Yeah.
actually like watching my mom cook for so long, cooking with my mom for so long, and, like, me calling her to, like, troubleshoot that, like, really informs that practice. Um, so to your question, I think my relationship with cooking changed because of COVID. I think it changed after COVID. It absolutely changed with the passing of our mom. Um, but it's very like dynamic and always changing. And I think the story and the ritual and the offering to yourself, to others, to those who have passed in cooking is really like profound to me, and
Yeah.
only become more powerful even though I stopped writing that book. I mean, I finished writing that book of essays, and I don't make that podcast anymore, but my relationship to it has even evolved since then.
Yeah. Would you revisit it, you think?
I would. I mean, I never actually literally never got that book. I never tried to get that book of essays published. I should
Mhm.
have. I'm sure my advisor, if she's listening right now, is mad about that for me. Um, but the context of that text was about COVID. It really
Yeah.
was. That's how it developed. But losing my mom has really changed the way I even, like, think back to that writing, and I wonder if I want to, like, relook at that and consider, like, bookending it with, my mom's loss or, at the very least, what I've learned since lockdown, and maybe, like, writing a little bit more or revisiting it and thinking about, like, not in the capitalistic way, but in the creative way, like, how do I wanna pack it? And I always said I would go back to the podcast if somebody wanted to fund it. So,
Yeah, listen,
Oprah, Brené Brown, if you're listening,
we love funding. We
I'll do
love
it for money.
funding. Yeah. Yeah. Can you still listen to it? Is
Yeah,
it still out there? Yeah, right?
it's still out there. It's on all the places. It's on,
Yeah.
I think, all the places that, this podcast, is digitally, not Lumpen,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah.
Apple Music and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
some of these people are still listening, which is really funny. There's
I
somebody that
love
listens
it.
to it, like, once a week. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
They're like, "Let's just revisit this one more time."
Yeah,
It might need its own study guide.
now we're talking.
Going back to education really quick, like, if you could make your own school, like, could you
Mm.
dream up, like, your own education system, or
Ugh.
what do you think it could be?
Well, first of all, I'll say the obligatory thing, which is education has not changed that much since the
Mhm.
Industrial Revolution. Like, we are
Mhm.
still teaching at large the same way that kids were getting taught a really long time ago. Um, that's why, like, transformation of education is important to me, my job, and to so many practitioners out there. Um, I really I think we haven't thoroughly and effectively evaluated how we reach young people, not just in this new internet landscape, but, like, really in a really long time.
Mm.
There's been big movements that have turned into models instead of changing how we teach. Like, an example is Montessori. Um, Montessori was radical. She, like, created this completely different way to teach, and then that was commodified into essentially like either a private school or like a methodology that could be adopted by an individual school, but it
Yeah.
didn't change the larger educational landscape. So, not to get, like, too nerdy, but, like, something needs to happen to
Yeah.
transform the way that we work with young people and teach young people, and, having 33 to 36 kids in a room with 1 teacher isn't the vibe.
Is it really that many?
It can be. The
Wow.
cap might be 33 or 34, I can't remember.
That
Uh,
sounds like a college lecture hall.
hello. Um,
Jeez.
but to your question, like, yeah, if I ran the circus or whatever that idiom is, like, there's so many things I would wanna try, like, for the first time because they haven't been available to me. There's some really cool schools out there that are doing really cool stuff. High Tech High in San Diego, you should look them up. They're really cool. And they are really, like, rethought the way that, school buildings are constructed. Everything from what a school building looks like to, like, what good practice is to how do you put students in the driver's seat of their learning? How do you showcase student work?
Mm.
Um, they're really cool. But yeah, I mean, I care a lot about arts integration. I care a lot about experiential learning, genuine experiential learning, this taking an action and then reflecting on it before moving on. And helping students make meaning and build up that reflective muscle that will serve them later in life to make meaning out of their experiences. But I also wish, like, school was a lot weirder and a
Yeah.
lot, like, more creative and a lot more flexible, like, and maybe more than we can even imagine right now. Um, there's a school in, Owatonna, Minnesota, that is set up kind of more like a college where, like, they have a ton of flexibility in, like, where and when they do their work and when and where they meet with their teachers, and like, the building is set up for, like, more like a campus, and
Okay.
more like a choose your own adventure kind of learning space. Um, and then, there's probably, like, 100 lovely hippy dippy schools, throughout
Yeah.
America, especially, like, in Vermont that are, like, getting wild and, like, going out on the farm and, like, learning with
Yeah.
cows and like just stuff that is really impactful and important. Funnily enough, my lifelong artistic person, right? But my first encounter with like experiential learning was actually like nature education.
Mhm.
Uh, when I was little, we lived in Massachusetts, and there was a ton of like programs and connections with the classroom about like the national seashore and like the coast and like learning about what's in the ocean and what's on the coast and what's in the tide pools. And that's really where my, like, hands-on education I first encountered it. I mean, aside from, like, preschool, which is cool because you get to do, like, a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so interesting because there's not a lot of integration of that stuff, like, why isn't there more, like, arts integration that's connected to nature education and, like, science? And you could, like, match up, like, subjects all the livelong day and be like, "Why aren't we connecting history to math?" Or
Yeah.
whatever. And really thinking about not just hands-on learning, because I think that that phrase has almost lost its meaning, but like
Mhm.
immersive, creative, complex learning environments that, yes, get kids excited about learning, but actually in the end replicate real world application more than sit in silence and like regurgitate, you know?
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about, like, the problem of, like, just this one problem that, like, as a society, we equate silence with learning,
Mhm.
silence with respect, silence with engagement, and that actually, number 1, doesn't tell you anything. It tells you that kids are being compliant. That's what it
Ah,
tells when they're silent, right?
yeah.
But
As someone who I'm not a teacher, I don't have children or whatever, like, how can I be, um and folks, like me, be, like, more, supportive of educators, education, outside of just, like, buying something from the bake sale or I don't know.
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think I'll I'll have a trick answer first, right?
Okay.
Is I think each school and neighborhood, like, has different needs.
Mm.
Um, so I think, like, the first answer to that question is, like, I'm thinking local, like, what do the teachers who live and work in your neighborhood, what do they need? What are they hopeful for from their community? And same with, like, schools at large.
Mhm.
Uh, schools are really different. The needs are really different. They change all the time. This year has taught us that, like, desperate need for, like, allyship and support and observers, of schools during, like, pickup and drop off while the, ICE was, active in our city, and
Yeah.
that was a need we didn't know was gonna be coming down the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
But that was sort of universal in some ways, and we also have some different ones, like, like, some schools are doing, like, donors choose, and, like, they're literally hopeful that people will buy them the supplies that a particular classroom needs, and
Hmm.
that has huge impact. Um, every school has an LSC, and LSC is like the evolved version of a PTA. It's a local school
Oh.
council, and it includes like staff members, teachers, parents, community members, and they actually have like elected positions on it.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
a really powerful group. Um, for the health of any school, and
Yeah.
most people don't know that who's running for those positions, who's on those teams, what those teams do, and they actually there's a huge, like, possibility and, potential in the LSCs. The LSC is like the principal's boss, so it's, like,
Oh,
actually a
wow.
really powerful group, like, they would, choose whether or not a principal was terminated if there was, like, something that came up.
Wow.
They, really can, be thoughtful and, powerful voices and, like, how money is spent. So knowing who's on your LSC, even if you don't have a child in the school that's like in your area is like huge. And they would also have some answers to like individualized questions of like what a particular school needs. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but it's kind of like local politics. It's kind of like local businesses, like, we can sometimes guess what somebody needs, but, like,
Yeah.
actually asking is, like, the most important thing. One of the biggest learnings that came out of the Change Collective Fellowship, which you and I both did, was the sentiment of people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And that tells me, if that's true, that I need to talk to the people who are closest to the problem.
Yeah.
If they're really closest to the solution, then they're like the movers and shakers and the idea generators. And kind of to your question, like, what's the best way to support teachers or education right now is probably finding out what are the micro and local problems that our teachers and educators and schools are facing.
I think from that, it makes me think like, okay, who in my neighborhood are the teachers? And I'll just ask them like, oh, what do you guys need? Like, do you have all your supplies? Or like, do you need, a crossing guard at this corner? Like, what
Mhm.
is it that you might need? And see how I and one could participate and help.
Yeah.
Joe, as we wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to mention that before we call our conversation complete?
Well, you know what? I'll give you a reframing. I
Yeah.
just this podcast is called Nosy AF,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about like nosiness as like a tool of liberation,
Mm.
and like what we were just talking about, like be nosy,
Yeah.
go to your local school council and find out what they're up to. Like, be nosy, go to your local, teachers and educators and schools and, like, uncover, like, in celebratory ways, what's going on and, in, like, supportive ways, like, what do folks need? And I think nosiness, gets vilified, but, like
Yeah.
or just, like, it's kinda like gossip gets vilified in a particular
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
but get nosy and, like, find out the answers to your questions and find out what questions you're not even asking,
Maybe there could be a Get Nosy campaign, get to know your educators.
period.
I'm going to walk in that school on Monday and I'm going to say, my name is Stephanie and I'm a community member and I want to know what the heck is going on in this school.
I also wanna make a pitch for because we talked about creative arts so much during this time, like, we live in a world right now where it's very seductive to be on your little screen while you're on your medium screen watching your big screen,
Yeah.
or be like we're so online, but, it's such a gift and such a special thing to support live in-person art.
Yeah, for
Um,
real.
I saw a play with, our friend Amy in January, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," and it was a scary play, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, this is so thrilling to hear the audience, like, gasp and react together and, like, really genuinely experience live communal art." I encourage everyone who's listening, if you made it this far into this episode, to go support some in-person physical art.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. Oh,
Of
where can
course.
folks find out more information about you if they need an instructional coach for their institution, if they want to talk about directing, where can we
Absolutely.
find you?
You can find out more about, my organization that I work at, Embark. You can find out more information at embarkchicago.org. We work with 17 high schools in the Chicago area, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're interested in bringing Embark to your school. And if you're just nosy about me, my artistic work, or you just need a friend, you can go to josephschubach.com. It's my name.
Thank you so much. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to another episode of Nosy AF on Lumpen. That's a wrap on another episode of Nosy AF, conversations about art, activism, and social change. I'm your host, Stephanie Graham. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening to the show. It helps new listeners discover it and say, hey, if these folks like this show, maybe I will love it too. Check out full show notes and transcripts at noseyAF.com. And while you're there, sign up for Nosy AF Dispatch, a newsletter where every month I send a roundup of episodes, behind-the-scenes stories, studio tales, and interesting finds straight to your inbox. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for listening. And as always, stay curious and take care. Bye.